guys? I'm Blue from YGO Anime Games. So, you guys just saw our duel, Taya versus Crump. Like we said at the beginning of this deck wave release with the Yugi versus Gansey duel, we're going to be doing all these new characters, or not the new characters, the new decks. All of them will be debuted against their opponent from the anime. So, you can kind of get an idea of who's going to play who. And then, so we're going through and doing the deck profiles right afterwards. So you saw a duel with the deck. We'll see how they do. Some better than others. And then, yeah. So, Taya was an interesting character. The way her deck was, the monster she chose. Her deck master, of course, was Dark Magician Girl. So she picked the counterpart to Yugi's Dark Magician. And this is probably because of her interest in Yugi / the Pharaoh, which builds throughout the seasons and then culminates in the ceremonial battle, the duel we recently did, where she's very conflicted between who she wants to win, because she wants Yugi to win, she likes Yugi, but she likes Atem, and he's going to move on, and, you know, there's a kind of a conflict there. She's got some issues, but anyway, we don't see her duel too much throughout the series. A little bit in Duel's Kingdom against Mai, and then the Virtual World. So this deck is, you know, of course, her Virtual World deck. It includes just about all the cards she played, plus, you know, the card in hand. Taya is one of the few decks in this wave that is actually like almost all the decks from the original Virtual World wave with the big five, where in this deck, and of course we'll get there, are spell cards which are meant to kind of replicate her deck master effects. As you've been seeing in these videos, we're not doing deck masters, and that is pretty much because, let's be honest, they're kind of messy. I mean, they have their pros and their cons, but the problem is with a lot of the original big five decks, in order to build these decks, they had to include the Deckmaster monster in triplicate, which we made a point of having that monster in triplicate for that, the emphasis of it. And we threw in spells and traps to the deck to mimic the effects of the Deckmaster. So Johnson had Lightning Vortex, Nesbit has Full Salvo, cards that give, you know, some feel of that Deckmaster effect. This also helps add to their deck and give them a better, more solid 40-card deck. So Taya is the same way. We're not playing with a Deckmaster because her deck has a built-in Deckmaster effect. Again, it's what we found to make the deck more wholesome, you know, to give it that 40-card count and just to have the deck itself play through smoother without taking out the side card. But anyway, so let's start this off. Her first monster is Ancient Elf. So the theme of her deck is a lot like Mai, and then also like Serenity. It's all female monsters. Some, you know, stronger ones, or, you know, for kind of anime level, stronger. Not as aggressive as Mai's Harpies, but they all, Mai, Taya, Serenity, they all, you know, picked female monsters. And I guess on the one hand it works. Okay, so the girls picked, you know, girl-themed cards. At the same time, it's like, maybe they pick something, an archetype, Spellcasters, maybe even dragons. Rebecca's decks had dragons in them. They weren't very, you know, feminine-themed. And they get, I'm not, this is just me, it's like, on the one hand, it's like, it's weird. The guys don't have guy cards. They have dragons and magicians and, you know, I mean, Joey's deck is full of, like, okay, he's got, like, Flame Swordsman and, Battle Warrior. I'll kind of go with Joey has, like, warrior-esque cards. So that's Joey. No one ever expected much from him. He was kind of just, like, Yugi needed a friend, and, he got Joey. We all have a friend who's a Joey. Anyway, so Ancient Elf, 1450 and 1200. Vanilla, nothing really special about it. Again, Taya's deck has a lot of triplicates just because of how few cards she played. She had one duel in the Virtual World. But So everything, almost everything is in triplicate, at least for the monsters. Again, to give that deck a fill, so we have a 40 card deck without throwing in too much stuff, because we don't like to throw that stuff in, but we do when we have to. Now the next monster, there's one of, and you'll of course see why. She didn't actually play it, but she did summon it. That's the catch. Yugi's Dark Magician. So during the duel, Dark Magician Girl is her deck master. She moves through the playing field. She plays Sage's Stone and summons the Dark Magician from Yugi's deck because he was nearby. Now granted, this is the virtual world. Even though the cards were displayed as holograms when they, even though the monsters were displayed in the what looks like the usual hologram form when they played, they were all kind of hologrammy, data flows, everything was computer. They were computers playing with computer cards in a computer. So really, again, like we did with Yugi, we threw in the cards that they didn't play in a duel, but they played in the environment because it's all connected. So, and she never played Dark Magician, but it ended up being her trump. Dark Magician Girl, Sage's Stone, and then taking Yugi's Dark Magician. That's how she beat Crump. I call it dumb luck because Yugi's there, but anyway, so Yugi's Dark Magician. I don't think any of the decks really. Yeah, no one else has it besides Yugi. So Tay is the first character to have the Yugi Dark Magician. So, that was something we wanted. Delta and I agreed originally. I mean, from the beginning, it's like she has to have Dark Magician, Yugi's Dark Magician. That was her trick play. That's how she won. And there's that symbolism again of, her and Yugi, and there's a thing there. Alright, moving on quickly. Gemini Elf, 1900-900. When this card came out, it was a secret rare. Labyrinth of Nightmare was the original printing. Back when you couldn't have super strong 4-star monsters. Now, no one cares because of everything else they have in the card game. But this one we kept it to because it's 1900 attack. We do have some limitations. So to keep the deck balanced, because this deck went through testing like a lot of our decks do. 3 was a bit much. Taya's deck was pretty good in testing because she played so few cards and we had duplicates of a lot of strong monsters and, some badass spells and traps. 2, Petite Angel. This was seen in her hand. She didn't play it. But because it was seen in her hand and it's a card we know she played from Duel's Kingdom, we went with 2. And we did this just, to give her that, yes, this definitely feels like Taya, but we didn't want to include her entire Duel's Kingdom list. This was the card that, we saw it now, we saw it then, kind of whole, I want to say coming like, kind of full circle, but not really. Okay, and again, like always, 3 of the deck master. And again, we did this probably because, Taya did use her Yugi, Kaiba, Joey. We can build their decks without the need for a deck master effect. They played enough. They each played at least 2 duels. But also because, unlike the Big 5, they didn't play with deck masters as much. The Big 5 sought out deck masters that fit their agenda or, their style. They built decks and worked to that extent. So Crump, had his whole water theme going. Gansley had the reflector hole. He needed to tribute 2 monsters for that effect, so his deck was based around always having monsters to use that effect. But again, Taya, not as heavy, but minor character, playlist cards, more copies. So here's a good one we haven't seen much of at all. Fire Sorcerer. Not all of them, but, a couple of his cards, have the thing in common where they came from Labyrinth of Nightmare. Like I said, the Gemini Elf, the Fire Sorcerer. Again, not a lot, but, that was actually a pack that had a lot of stuff for Season 2 and Season 3. It had, you know, the jam cards like Strings Used, Shining Abyss was Lumus Numbra, and then it had some Tejas cards. There's more cards than, you know, you can go through the whole pack yourself. But that pack, when it started printing, started giving us cards that we saw through the next 2 seasons. Not everything and not all of it, but, you know. So, her effect is a flip effect. We don't really see these much. We have, and some effects say when this is flipped face up, but it's not a flip effect. An old school flip. So, you randomly select 2 cards from your hand and remove them from play. And then you inflict 800 points of damage to your opponent. So, it can help in a pinch, you know, and 1500 defense is not bad in anime games, as you guys have seen. There are strong monsters, but there are also not that many strong monsters. So, 15 is a decent defense. And it's 800 damage. It'll cost you 2 cards. Hopefully they're not ones that you were counting on using. And with Teja's deck, she does get some cards that, you know, you're okay to ditch. So, Mahavilo. Again, it's all about this, you know, these female monster theme that she has. Her effect doesn't do much because she doesn't really have equip spells in this deck. But it's pretty much just being a 1550, 1400 monster. It's really cool. The original printing was a super for that one. You know, we have it somewhere. Not in this deck, but it was always a cool card, I thought. It was always just, you know, I like the art on it. I like the blue dress outfit thingy. And Skalangle. This is a card going around a bit in the virtual world. With the, you know, between people who actually use it and then a few decks we threw it in. But Skalangle is, you know, we've seen it a couple times, and it's just so easy. Flip, and you draw a card. 900, 400 makes you good for that one purpose of flip and draw a card. Next up is just Graceful Charity. So, 1 copy. This was card seen in Teja's hand, not played. Again, for the virtual world, we compromised our rule a little bit more about using cards in hand. It is a draw card that is already in a lot of character decks, so it's not that it's too out of place for the anime. And again, having the angel on the card and that little bit of a feminine thing that I guess they were really trying to stick with. So it gives her a draw card that's not like Skalangle, where, you know, you have to set it, flip it. So that's all there really is to say about this one. Again, it's a card we've seen a lot, but in Teja's case, it does actually help fit her a little bit. You know, in a very small way. And then the note that it was seen in the hand, but we included because she did not play enough cards to use just played cards. Alright, anyway. And next up, again, triplicate spell card. Magic Formula. We've seen this in Yugi's deck, of course, because he's the only one with Dark Conditions, aside from Arcana, but Arcana's deck was a little bit different. So yeah, so she's going to use it probably more on her Dark Magician girl, considering she has 3. And 3 of this. And yeah, you know, it's 700 attack boost if it goes from the field to the grave. It's 1000 life points. Always a great card to have. And especially in, you know, Teja's deck. So now her Dark Magician girl is more likely to be stronger than 2000. Unlike in Yugi's decks where you have to get that 1 magic formula or have the 1 Dark Magician, maybe a Magician Black Chaos also in the grave for her to get anything more 2000. This deck, you can consistently see her being a little bit stronger. Now, 2 MSTs. This makes it one of the few. This adds her to the list of decks that have spell and trap removal. Not a lot of decks do, and it's usually more in main characters. So, Teja being a smaller character with 2 MSTs is pretty good. It's also something to watch out for because if you're anybody else, you're gonna have a lot of, or a fair amount of cards, And then, again, her opponent being Crump, and Crump having cards, he sets some trap cards, Gust and Driving Snow, designed specifically to deal with all their spells and traps being destroyed. Also on the 2-card list is Offerings to the Doomed, because it is a pretty good card. You destroy a monster on the field. The conditions, it has to be face up, which is, you know, enough cards anyway. And then you skip your next draw phase. So the trade-off is debatable. I mean, destroying a monster can be monumental to winning. Where skip your next draw phase, especially in her deck, which has several draw cards, the next one will be one of them. It's hard to really count that as much of a cost. But anyway, 2 Offerings to the Doomed. Now, the next card is a card, obviously, she didn't play it, and it's really not even from this era of Yu-Gi-Oh! But this card was included because it was a close way to mimic her Deckmaster effect, and it's a simple way. And if you play competitively, you know this card very well. More than likely. This is Pot of Duality. And because it's a Deckmaster effect, we have 3. Always 3. So yeah, Pot of Duality, again, you pick up the top 3 cards of your deck, you pick one, you show it to your opponent, you pick one, the other 2 go on the bottom of your deck. Dark Magician Girl's effect had this cute little name, it's called Soul Circle, and it was during your turn, you can reveal 1 card in the top of your deck for each monster in your graveyard. Okay, so right now they're the same in that you have to pick up the cards from the top of your deck and reveal them. The difference is how many. 1 is always 3, 1 is equal to the monsters in your grave, which could be great if you've kind of been losing a lot, so. And then you can add 1 to your hand. So, again, and then it's really the same, except that 1 lets you have more or less options to choose from. This is always just 3. So, you know, great card and competitive. Everyone had it. Oh, we left the effect in where you can only you can't special summon the turn you activate. She has 1 special summon. She gets the Sage's Stone to Dark Magician, so it's not like it's really that even much of a cost. Alright, moving on. I know, I talk a lot. Sage's Stone. I love this card. The artwork is really beautiful, and it only works one way though. If you have Face of Dark Magician Girl, you can special summon Dark Magician from your hand or deck. And I know, we have 3 of these and 1 Dark Magician. This was a combination of giving her enough of her own cards and then not making her deck super powerful and not having more than 1 other Dark Magician she didn't actually have. And she had Yugi's, and, you know, Yugi only ever has 1. So, point being, 1 of them is going to work, 2 of them are going to be dead, but you have Graceful Charity, you have Fire Sorcerer. It's not like you have, you know, absolutely nothing to do with them, although it's not the most foolproof plan. But, and this also came out, interesting, that came out in the same video game set as Knight's Title and Dark Magician Knight, and those cards, we have them both in Yugi's deck, although in the anime, Joey played Knight's Title and Yugi had Dark Magician Knight, because they did little different things. But, again, that was all the same video game. They're all cards from the virtual world. Alright, lastly, traps. Okay, 3 traps, real quick. Michizuri, we threw this in Duke's deck. It's also in Crump's deck. It's in a couple of decks, because either they played it, of course, or we threw it in, because it's not a bad generic trap. It's a 1-for-1. You know, we put it in a deck or 2 if they kind of don't have a lot of defensive trap, that at least you have something to maybe clear out an aggressive monster on your opponent's field. Alright, and card she played, again, hey look, a little bit of Yugi in there, was Mirror Force. So, Mirror Force, Yugi's Trump. We added 2. We don't like using 2 Mirror Force. The Luminous and Umber decks have 2 Mirror Force, but it partly comes down to giving her something that's defensive / aggressive, and, you know, just her like card she played. The last card we threw in kind of fits her theme as deemed by us. You know, what we think fits her theme, what we liked putting in her deck, what we thought worked. Wabaku, and there's 2. So this is a neutral defensive trap. Does nothing to your opponent. It just protects your monsters from being destroyed, protects your life points. So essentially it almost might as well end the battle phase. It's kind of, you know, almost the same. I know it's not the same, but you get what I'm saying. It's close enough to it. That is just kind of very strong state of neutrality. Alright, and no fusions in Taya's deck. But next up will be Johnson versus Joey, and they will each have a fusion. Not that it's relevant, I'm just changing a fusion. So, alright guys, that's Taya's Virtual World deck. It's nothing, I think, super, you know, tremendous, but it's cool. We've gotten requests for Taya, and we already had plans for her, and we wanted her with Virtual World. We wanted to round out Virtual World. We had the big 5, and now we're releasing the 5 heroes one at a time. We're going through them. We're seeing hero versus their big 5 opponent, and, you know, we're seeing what happens with, you know, the anime decks in real life. So, like, Yugi didn't do it too well. Yugi needs to stop using monsters that require specific, you know, summon conditions, 2 rituals, Dark Magician Knight. Taya's smarter, uses more cards you can actually summon. But anyway, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for that next duel, Johnson versus Joey.